Welcome back to the channel, guys, and today I'm going to show you guys how to set your interface's input levels for the best response on your amp sims. But before we get into the video, if you would like for me to mix your music, shoot me an email at divinemotherstudios@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you guys with details of your project. Okay, so here's the strategy with this whole thing. I want to get the most real-world recreation of my amp sims in a digital format. That's why we buy these products. That's why we spend all this time just checking different ones out. It's because we want to have our favorite amplifiers that are in the real world be recreated on our computers in that digital form. So with that whole strategy in the back of our mind, what are the tactics to try to get this accomplished? First things first is going to be setting the correct input level on your interfaces. Now, while your instincts may be to have a healthy level somewhere around maybe -6, -9, even before I learned this, I was doing it around -12. Starting with your interface's input level all the way down is actually the key to get this ball rolling. Why? Well, it prevents any unwanted distortion and clipping that you may have on cheaper interfaces, but ultimately it's because we're eliminating an extra stage of gain that is not present in the real world. In the real world, we just have our guitars, a cable, some pedals, and our amplifiers. There is no preamp in between those stages. You want to think of it as removing a pseudo boost pedal on your amp sims. By having your interface's preamp gain dialed up to -6 or -9, you're inherently boosting a signal into the amp sim. I have made a previous video regarding this topic, so I'll go ahead and link it up here somewhere. Okay, moving on to section 2. With our preamp gain out of the way, it's time to adjust the input gain on our amp sim. Check out the link below where I have linked to Ed S's Google Sheet, where he has listed multiple interfaces with their values, and as well as the values that the amp sims should be set at depending on that specific interface. Also, please check out my previous video where I addressed a few comments and concerns from viewers on my original video, where I talk about the difference between your interface's preamp gain versus the input gain on your amp sims. However, if you're still kind of lost on how to do all this, I made a small playlist with the trilogy of videos that I have made regarding this topic, and I will link that as well below. However, I highly suggest watching Ed S's original video, which I'll also link down in the description, for you guys to have a much better technical understanding, but that goes beyond the scope of this video. So now that we have eliminated our preamp gain and then properly set the input gain on our amp sims to get the most accurate responses, we should have a very good foundation for getting very accurate results with our amp sims. However, a quick bonus tip for you guys: no amount of gain staging, perfect input setting can save your tone if you do not have a solid foundation. I am talking about a well-executed performance that's been tracked very tight, played very well, with new strings, and extremely well edited. So before we start anywhere else, I would highly suggest practicing getting your tracking skills on point, your editing skills on point, because getting a really great DI is going to be the great foundation for getting amp sim tones that are great and good to go for the mix. Now, before I let you guys go, I'm going to address one final thing here. I was left a comment by a pretty cool YouTuber, and he said that for metal, maybe this technique may not be necessary, as a lot of the times we are driving our amp sims with a boost pedal, and to begin with, that is present in the software. However, I still think there's some value for us metalheads here. High gain can mask a lot of issues, especially when it comes to clipping and distortion that the preamps may introduce. So by dialing out the preamp gain like this, and then just using the input gain on the amp sim, we're actually ensuring a much better clarity in our tones, allowing us to get a much better response and representation of the tones that we're going for. This is something that the more classic rock players, jazz guys, and blues players have found out for many years when regarding using amp sims, because they would find that their clean tones would be way more overdriven with the preamp gain all the way up versus all the way down. And they realized by turning down the preamp gain that they were able to recreate their preferred tones from the real world in the digital format much more accurately. So just to kind of sum up everything, setting the correct input levels on your preamp gain and on your amp sims allows you guys to get a much more authentic representation of what the plugin manufacturer was ultimately going for when creating your amp sims, giving you a much better and much more realistic response out of the product. I hope you guys learned something about how to set your input levels properly, and if you have any questions, leave me a comment below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.